So yeah, I'm Mandidextrous, and in this little segment I'm just going to show you how I kind of get my ideas together for creating a drum groove for my drum and bass sections that help these kind of fusion tracks between drum and bass and techno. So going back to the actual kick side of things and where that all came from, and how the track kind of started in the first place and how it developed into this techno section was the drum and bass bit, and that's where this track actually started. It started on a drum and bass groove, you know. So essentially how I got that going on, if I just play the drum and bass grooves together, is just literally just kind of building from a kick and a snare. So for the D and B bit, I just I wanted to find some nice sounds that were going to work. So I've got a sample pack from a brilliant Bristol producer called WBBL, and he's got some nice kicks in there and stuff like that. So I jumped straight in on there on a nice kick. I also found this really nice kind of like low end punchy snare. It's got a lot of like kind of bat to it, you know. I really liked it, and I think I layered that up with a clap straight away, just to give it kind of like an extra kind of element to the top end of it. Bearing in mind as well just about phase. So when I layered this clap over it, I spent a lot of time actually just moving it from left to right to find where it sounded nicest, because we have this like transient at the start that I kind of wanted to keep in because it makes that clap element work, but also I needed to make sure that the main transient at the snare wasn't getting coloured or kind of pushed out of the way by anything else. So I kind of found moving this clap around above the snare was really helpful, because I got to a point where it sounded good. It still sounded like a clap layered above a snare, but there was no problem with one big transient sitting on top of the other. So it kind of ended up here and it worked. And then from there as well, just layering up other sounds. So I have this like kind of really nice on-beat hat. It's kind of, that drives the whole D&B thing. I also have a ride layered over the top of that. And all of these sounds are panned as well and processed in different ways. I tend to use, the auto pans quite a lot. I run kind of sidechain compression to my kick and snare throughout my drum groups or my individual drum channels in this case. Also in Ableton, there's some great saturation options that I tend to use quite a lot. I love this one here, which is just a preset called A Bit Warmer, which for my percussion I find is really great. It gives a lot of brightness and kind of sharpness, saturation, distortion to my high ends and stuff like that, which I tend to also then, at a later stage, kind of process a bit more on my drum groups. There's a brilliant plugin called Soothe 2, which is a worthy spend, just to help control those harsh frequencies and stuff like that. Just at the end of your drum channels, a great idea. So yeah, I kind of started with this drum groove with my kick and snare. That is literally how the track started, and it's how most of my tracks actually start, is with a drum groove. Because of the style of drum and bass that I want to portray and want to make, I'm really into this big dance floor, big room drum and bass, along the lines of, Sub-Focus, Dimension, Metric. All of those guys there have got these really big synthetic kick snare things going on. I'm not really one to grab for like loops, like jungle loops and stuff like that. I do use them as percussive elements, but it usually always comes down to a big powerful kick snare presence to really make the dance floor pop. So once I had my drum group together, it came down to the melody side of things. So I'd kind of created this drum groove that I was happy with. At this point I hadn't even created any of the techno either. I just wanted a good drum groove to start with, and then it came to the melody bit, and I actually had these like kind of ideas in an old tune that did nothing, just sat on the cutting room floor doing nothing, which were kind of like a few preset sounds that are kind of thrown together. I tend to kind of, you know, start with melody if I can once I've got some cool drums. And this is kind of where it started, really. I always tend to have these like sustained strings because I think all good dance music should have a sustained string for a bit of suspense. And then I found this really nice arp to kind of sit over the top of it, and then these like weirdly placed kind of like sounds down here, which you know, kind of are in kind of like odd places, and they just like, it's, you know, I liked it. I thought it was a cool idea. And then this kind of like low drone, yeah, and it kind of like started from there. It kind of gave me ideas, and then, you know, I thought back to the old drum and bass that I used to love, you know, old Bad Company stuff, old Virus records, and you know, just like, yeah, just the old sounds of like the height of the 2000s era, where, you know, like drum and bass was getting really exciting. And I wanted to make something that had loads of impact, so I kind of made this little like melody run down here, which then drove the whole track. So it kind of comes in like this. And it kind of had these like old, like early 2000s drum and bass styles, like kind of running around in my head. And it's like, you know, it's quite simply just a sub with some you know, some Reeses over the top, descending Reeses. That's just another weird bass noise. I think the Reeses in this actually are up here somewhere, and they've come from an Akov pack. Yet again, Akov's presets are really great, and I'm not that good at writing decent Reese. It's something that I want to get better at, but it all kind of like came together. I don't know where the top synths actually are living for that. I think it's dropped in here. Yeah, so yeah, we've got like 2 serum patches from presets from it's not Akov, it's from Aoki's sound pack for Serum. Just a couple of sounds layered up. We have this like lead, and then over the top of that a kind of more distorted version. Again, just some simple, hardly any processing on those actually. And just layered them with my bass, and have these little cut parts as well in here. These kind of like little bass sounds that kind of all work together. So that whole section kind of gave me the idea of the track, just to kind of like have this like big kind of like, you know, power on the dance floor that comes in with this great vocal. Break, 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 break it down. Break. So it kind of builds, got some rises, all of the fun stuff, and then it drops on the vocal again, break it down, and then into the D&B groove. So with the D&B bass and the D&B groove on that, I wanted to follow the pattern of the descending notes that I have up here into the bass. So I think I created this kind of bass sound here. It's kind of like the troglodyte bass. I actually, Akov's pack has got a troglodyte sound in it, and I took that and kind of reverse engineered it and then remade something. But I've got that, you know, cut off, rolled off around just the top end of 80 hertz. A bit of saturation through that as well, and a small bit of reverb on there as well, with the lows cut out the reverb, and then just some further EQing again, and some filtering at the end, just to keep it all nice and tight. And then I've got this sub running, which I've made in Operator, which is on a split rack, just here. If I just unfreeze that, we can have a look. So it's just literally an Operator patch that I've made, just a really simple sub. And then over the top of that, I have this like affected sound that is just like kind of a bit of saturation. It's the same bass patch, but I've just EQ'd it out, run some saturation through it, and a bit of erosion and amp at the end, just to kind of give it some extra fizz, and then layered that with the sub, kind of gives a fuzz bass, and then turn all of that into audio just here. And then on that audio channel, no processing, and that's it. So those two sounds together just kind of like have a really cool groove, and then, you know, when you bring the drums in as well, and then again it's just with the D&B thing, just coming down to the side chaining, just to make sure that the kicks and the snares are punching through right. I think I've got a trigger channel in here, which is triggering my side chains. So this is just literally a MIDI copy of my kick snare pattern, and then over the top of my my basses, I have like side chains to the kick and snare, and that kind of like all ties it together really.